Hey everybody, what's going on? The Montreal Canadiens are back on the ice. We have 3 preseason games to break down, and I'm going to dive into some of the biggest standouts and maybe some of the biggest disappointments from the Montreal Canadiens training camp to this point. Now, although there hasn't been any positives in the win column for the Montreal Canadiens in the preseason, not that any of these games ultimately matter in the grand scheme of things, you're looking for the player development of young players. You're looking at whether some of the veterans are back into game shape early on, and I think the player development is just a massive key from what we're seeing early on in this preseason, and some of the Montreal Canadiens' biggest and most highly talented prospects are showing that they do have the toolkit to be able to find future success in the National Hockey League, which is obviously what you're looking towards in these game settings. Let's start with Juraj Slafkovsky. Now, I know he hasn't put up any points on the score sheet, but you're looking for what the tools are here that are going to make him find success in the NHL in the future. You're not looking for what he is right now, and Ken Hughes and company have been extremely transparent with that through the media. They want the best player in 5 seasons, the one that's going to be the best when the Montreal Canadiens are entering their contention, whether that's 3 to 5 seasons from now. Who knows at this point in time? But looking at the toolkit that Slafkovsky brings to the table, he brings such elite puck protection, and that's going to be a huge strength when he plays with whether it's smaller center like Nick Suzuki or just whoever he ends up playing with in the lineup. You just know that he's going to bring a lot of skills that this team currently lacks, and he's got to fill out in his frame. This is a player that's very raw, despite playing in some big games against men in the Olympics and World Championships and showing well on the bigger ice surface. It's going to take an adjustment period, and fans have to be patient during this. You can't expect big numbers right out of the gate for Slafkovsky. Even if he does get some seasoning in Laval, I don't expect that to take place immediately, no matter how he looks in preseason. I think he's going to get a taste of the NHL lifestyle, whether that's through a 9-game sample size to begin this NHL season or whatever it happens to be. The big thing the Montreal Canadiens have going for them is that Laval is right down the road, and they can kind of bring him up as they see fit and give him that taste, see things that he needs to work on in his development, and send him back down to be able to work on those and hone his craft in that setting. And I think that's going to be something they're going to do very well, and you're already seeing that pay dividends with some of their young players in other facets of their games. Now, in saying that, the one player that's really stood out to me so far, he just looks like a seasoned veteran, looks extremely comfortable out there, and I guess that shouldn't exactly be a surprise knowing what we know of this player, and that's Tayden Primo. He looks like he's just going to be a staple in the Montreal Canadiens top 4 for the next decade. We're not really sure exactly what his ceiling is going to be. I don't think it's likely he's going to be a top pairing defenseman, but that's still a valuable role he could play if he plays on that second pair. He's able to move the puck well for a guy of his size. He has a very strong skating stride as well, and he can play a lot of different elements that his team is currently lacking on the back end. He brings some physicality, an ability to make a great first pass, and he's starting to carry the puck a lot better through the zone, and I think that's very important in terms of his development because he has that big frame and he has that ability with his skating, and he's gotten a lot better with his puck handling skills. So I think that's something that he's going to be doing in the future as well. I personally think he tops out as a number 3 defenseman and someone that can eat a lot of minutes on that second pair, potentially even being a shutdown pair in the future, and just someone you can rely on late in games for those shutdown minutes. I just think that this is a very promising player. He already looks NHL ready. There's going to be some speed bumps along the road, and you're going to have to deal with those, as is any development with a young defenseman. But I think that Tayden Primo is already on his way to being a very successful NHL defenseman, and his gap control is just very strong, and I think that a lot of these skill set that he brings to the table are going to pay dividends when looking towards what this team is trying to build on their defensive core for the future. Now, there hasn't been a lot of notable disappointments from the Montreal Canadiens training camp up to this point. I mean, maybe Justin Barrett in terms of what was expected of him entering this training camp, but I still believe he's going to be a strong 4 or 5 defenseman for the Montreal Canadiens in the future. But the one player that's kind of standing out for me right now is Tayden Primo in goal. There's just been a few of these soft goals that have continued to go in throughout the preseason when he's played goal, and I think that's really hindered him and hurt his confidence because we know what he's been capable of in the AHL. He backstopped Laval to a very strong playoff run last season, and a lot of that was on the back of his performance. So I think that he needs another full season of seasoning in the AHL. Don't bring him up unless there's injuries. It just isn't a good situation right now for him to be seeing time in the NHL. Samuel Montembeault is a very capable backup, and worst case scenario, you pick up someone on waivers that can fill in if there's injuries in the Canadiens net. So I believe that Primo needs that full season in Laval, regain his full confidence, and just start honing his craft as a whole, being able to be that potential number one or number two 1A, 1B goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens in the future is still a very realistic outcome for him. But right now, he's just not ready for that role. And I think he needs that full year in Laval to get completely ready. And I believe that a lot of that is between his head. He needs to continue to build a strong mental mentality towards being an NHL goalie, because there's no doubt about it, the skill set is clearly there for this player. That's it for me today from Cook's Corner. As always, let me know in the comment section down below what your thoughts are about the Montreal Canadiens preseason up to this point. What do you think of some of the development of some of their young players? And if you think the Montreal Canadiens are in good hands moving forward into the future. I'm Zach Cook. We'll see you later.